Hey guys, it's Will. Um, so I'll make another video about yesterday, and also um, I want to forget a couple things. One thing of interest is that the congregation that I have been going to has just recently undergone its second merger in the course of 1 year. And I asked about that, and he said that some congregations had been dissolved. So again, the congregation I'm going to just underwent its second merger in the course of 1 year, and it's because of congregations being dissolved. So that's an interesting note. If they're growing so rapidly, why are they dissolving congregations, you know? Anyway, the other funny thing was the night before, I guess Wednesday evening, the younger elder was texting me, and just light stuff. And then he said, "Hey, can I make a suggestion about our Bible study tomorrow?" And he's referencing us using the "What Can the Bible Teach" book. Yeah, "What Can the Bible Teach Us" book. And and I said, "Yeah, what's your suggestion?" And he said, "Well, because the first time we looked over some of it, we were skimming a lot of the paragraphs, not reading all of them because I just we started out and I was like, yeah, this is some of this is silly to be going over with me, you know, especially the first few chapters. Um, anyway, so he suggested that we read every paragraph and go over it and look at the questions, and and I said, well, a lot of these are completely irrelevant to me. They don't apply at all. You know, I already have a faith in the Bible. I already, you know, I'm already established. It's not like I've never looked at the Bible, right? I don't need to be convinced of its content. And anyway, um, and then he said something about, oh, and I said, and I don't need to be convinced of it. And I said, I don't, you know, we just need to skip some of these paragraphs because I don't need puff pieces or opinion pieces. I want to just stick to the Bible. You know, I don't need someone else's opinion. I don't need to, you know, exactly what I said. Anyway, so then he comes back with, well, something along the lines of, you know, like when you go to a meeting, that not everything applies to you, but you can get a different understanding from it, or help you to see things in a different angle, or expressing each other helps us understand more. And I said, I can see that in some cases, but again, uh, some of these paragraphs just they're incapable of doing that for me or us because they're so simple, they're so basic. It's not even, you know, it's not even considered milk. But anyway, so and then he said, well, he texted again. Then he's like, well, I'm just trying to figure out what you need. And I said, well, my need is the Bible. I said, your need was to use a book about the Bible. And that kind of ended that part of the conversation, apparently. So, anyway, so he ends up bringing his wife with him. To him and his wife come and we meet at Barnes and Noble to go over some of the study, some of the first chapter of the Bible Teach book. And we end up only getting a few paragraphs done because um, his wife, who's very blunt and outspoken, which I love, I think it's awesome. Uh, you know, she would hear some of my comments and want to talk about it. And Jamil and the younger elder, you know, he's like, "Oh man, excuse me." He's you know, he's like, "Oh Lord, here we go," because he's gone over some of this stuff with me, you know. But it gave plenty of openings to talk about the Tetragrammaton and what that does mean, because it says in here, like, you know, God's name, Jehovah, has deep meaning. And I was like, yeah, I agree. So I showed her what the tetragram means in the pictogram/pictograph form. Um, we brought up also, I explained to them why it would say in Psalms 83:18 that you alone are the most high over all the earth. And why I said all the earth, because of the regional gods at that time. And we got into, like, I put a line through one paragraph where it said that only Jehovah is the creator. And so we really got into that. And I got into, because she's hadn't really discussed anything in depth with me. And so I go over what modalism versus the Trinity it is, and that's a good thing, because that way the younger elders hearing me explain it again, and I explain a few different ways to look at the Trinity, and we got into, Colossians 1:15 and 16. We got into John 1:1 about God versus a God, and how no other translation of the Bible translate it as a God except the Spiritist Bible that I've found. There could be another one. So far, the only one I've found that has a God in it is the Johannes Grieber Spiritist Bible and the New World Translation. So I went over that some. We did cover that the articles are different at John 1:1, but she was trying to make the point that they're not the same person. And I said, no, I agreed. The Father and Jesus are not the same person. And again, because she's been taught that the Trinity is modalism, they can't grasp the concept when you first start talking to them, because they were, you know, the Watchtower set up a straw man argument to defeat the Trinity, but again, they don't define the Trinity properly. It's intellectually completely dishonest the way they define the Trinity. They try to say it's modalism, and everyone knows when you look into it that it's not the same thing. Anyway, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse now. But, and so then I go into John 1:3, where it says everything that came into being, that he made everything that came into being by Jesus, right? Like you created it. And so it took a few minutes, but I got them to understand the concept, to a cursory degree, understand the concept that Jesus couldn't have been created, because that means he would have come into being. And if Jesus created everything that came into being through him creating it, then how can he have been created? And it didn't fully sink in, but I think the concept, they started to get it. And, he was showing me some stuff from some of the reference Bibles, and we were going over different verses on who God is, and understanding what the title God means. Like God in nature. In nature, the Father is God. In nature, Jesus is God. In nature, the Holy Spirit is God. They have differing positions, but in nature, they're all equal. And I use the analogy again of human nature. Again, the three of us sitting there, all equally human, but in position, we're going to have differences. But we are all equally human. Human nature, God nature. Again, in him the fullness of deity dwelt, right? Anyway, so, and then at some point she turned to the scripture talking about someone that wants to argue over words and stuff like that. And because then we get into the Greek and we start talking about Archie, and then thanks to one of you that made the comment about the word "echad," and I looked into it, and the same word that's used to describe a marriage couple as one, the word "echad," is the same word in the Old Testament used to describe God being one. So again, that throws a different slant on it. Like, and I said, you and your husband aren't one person, right? And so I think the point was made there. So then she also goes into, she's getting a little flustered, and she's telling me a few times that I'm just wanting to argue and not looking at it objectively. And I'm saying, and a number of times I said, well, I could say the same thing about you right now, because we're both showing each other scriptures. But can you look at it objectively and understand why I would come to the conclusion I have? And I said, I can understand why you come to your conclusion. Can you understand why I come to mine? Again, trying to get some critical thinking started, right? And so at some point she reads me the scripture about about uh, about not arguing over words and all that stuff. I can't remember exactly, and I can't remember where it is exactly. And then she proceeds to tell me that I have demonic traits or qualities because I'm too concerned over words. And I think, to side note for a second, the reason I get concerned over words is because the Greek has one meaning, but sometimes it'll take multiple words in English to describe that meaning, and then you have to take the word in context. So of course you need to be very specific about what words you use to properly relay the Greek. And so anyway, and so as I'm reading stuff, I'm basically talking as I read something, say from their study Bible, and I'm proofing it as I go, and I'll be like, okay, well that one doesn't feel quite right, and this is why. But so I'm literally just like I would proofread a paper in college, like anyway. And so the husband, the younger elder there, when his wife started to tell me that I had demonic traits and demonic qualities, he got real uncomfortable. He was scared how I was going to react. And as she's telling me this, I said to her, as she's going, start saying this, I said, if you could offend me, I would be offended right now, but you can't offend me, so we're good. And she keeps going. She's explaining it a little bit more, how I'm acting demonic. Even though I'm just using the Bible, I'm literally just showing her scriptures, and she's telling me that I'm being demonic. And the younger elder, the husband, he was visibly relieved when I started smiling, and then I started laughing. And it actually made me like her more. The fact that she would just straight up be like, just tell me what she thought. I love that. I thought it was awesome. Like I even told her that. I was like, I like you more now. Like just throw it out there. Like I thought it was awesome. But again, it's funny that the I was just sharing points and counterpoints with her and her husband, and by me sharing differing scriptures, she decided in her mind that I was acting demonic, right? But again, why would she say that? Because I did hammer him kind of hard, and partially I wanted to see how she took some of it. And I'm gonna back off a little bit next time. But again, why did she end up having that strong of a reaction to get to the point to tell me that? Again, cognitive dissonance. I was butting it up against her cognitive dissonance. It was so obvious that, I mean, it was hitting her hard. And it made her so uncomfortable to the point that because she felt so uncomfortable with what the verses I showed her in the Bible, it made her such a strong reaction of cognitive dissonance that she felt, she had to tell me that I was acting demonic. And yeah. So it's quite fascinating to watch this stuff in action. And anyway, so we did end on a good note though, and overall I think it went all right. And at one point she did share that um, she was wondering if I was there to tear their faith down. And as I've told him and I told her, the last thing in the world I'm there to do is get between them and God. That's not a position that, in my opinion, anyone wants to be in, to get between someone and their God and God. You know? And it was interesting because she said she felt like I might be there just to do that. She wasn't sure. And again, I appreciate her honesty. And part of that was because of stuff we've talked about, again, about either the religion, and he doesn't want me to share details of my life with her. And again, and I said, and I asked her, how can I, if you have truth, if you can compare what I say to the Bible, if you have God on your side, how can I, as one man, get in the way of your relationship with God? I don't understand that. But again, they also don't have, it's obvious they don't have critical reasoning skills, and they let another group of people do all their Bible research and form all their opinions for them. So, of course, the people putting this information out don't want you to think critically. They don't want you to form opinions. They don't want you to do everything that I do, because it's going to, that house of cards that they've built just falls apart. And again, that's why I saw an extreme cognitive dissonance reaction with her. That's why she was concerned and shared with me that she thought I was tearing down her faith, and it's all I was doing was sharing truth with her. Yet somehow she felt that was tearing down her faith. Um, Maybe at some point you need to realize it's not true if something as simple as talking to me for a couple hours can make you start to question what's true. Because no one I speak to can make that happen to me. I'll take their points. I'll take someone's points and I'll investigate them. But I'm not going to form an opinion just off of what someone says. I'm going to investigate what they say. Critical reasoning 101. You don't just take something on face value. You don't change your core beliefs. You don't come to suppositions just based on someone else's opinion or a puff piece without doing the research. That's why every college English course you have to quote sources and cite the sources, because you're not allowed to just put something out there and not have any evidence for it and expect someone to believe you, which is exactly what JW.org does. And I brought that up to them with their study Bible. I was like, you're making these claims. I'm pointing out a few places they're showing me, look at this cool piece. And I'm like, well, where's the references for what they're saying? They don't even tell you what manuscript it is. They don't tell you what piece of history it is, let alone tell you the book they're quoting or the expert in their field that they're quoting from. They just make this claim and give no supporting evidence. And I was like, you can't do that. I said a high school English student can't do that. They'll get an F on their papers if that's how they try to make an English paper. You can't in a writing class, composition class, whatever. And so between that stuff and just sharing the Bible with them, you know, she's thinking I'm demonic and tearing down her faith. How amazing is that? Again, it only further shows the bite model, right? Again, left on a good note though, and I'm going to temper it down a little bit next time if she's there, especially, and just to try to go as some of you have suggested. Thank you for that. I was trying to, and before I was trying to give them too much meat or any meat at all, right? And I need to stick with milk, the simple stuff. And it was funny even though I was sticking with very simple, not completely. I need to work on that. It was still amazing to watch the reaction I got out of it, right? So, anyway, yeah, this is Guardian Fury. Y'all have a good one.